Hello, this is a demo of how to do an in-place replacement of the OS on an HDP cluster while maintaining the integrity of the services and the data for that particular host. In my demo, I have a 6-node cluster, 2 master nodes, 4 worker nodes. All of the nodes currently are running CentOS 6. I will be replacing master node 2 with a CentOS 7 version of the same. Each one of the nodes has a separate mounted directory set for the data directory and var log and a bunch of little var log entries there. The key here that is that any persisted data that is specific to the services on that particular node need to be on a separately mounted device other than the root OS. If you have not done this before this upgrade, you will lose that data. So before you do the upgrade of the OS, ensure that all persisted state-driven data for the services on that node are not on the root OS. This is a copy. This is showing you the cluster. I've got a very simple set of services here: HDFS, Yarn, MapReduce, Hive, Tez, Zookeeper, etc. 4 nodes that are live. If I go into HDFS, you can see one of the other characteristics of this working on master nodes, especially for services like HDFS and Yarn, is that you have HA enabled. As you can see, I have HA enabled. I have an active name node here on master node number 1, and I have a standby name node on master node number 2. Now, in this case, I have set this up to where the active master services are not on the node that we will be replacing. As you can see, my Yarn resources on master node number 2, which we'll be replacing, is in standby. And HA is important for these services as well as any other services. If you're going to be using Hive and replacing a server with Hive on it, then I would recommend having multiple Hive server 2s and your clients be accessing Hive server 2 through the Zookeeper URLs to ensure that they can fail over to another Hive server 2 if they're connected to the one that you're going to be taking offline. Now, to set this up, I have a couple scripts in play, but in this case I can show you the 6 hosts that I have. Host 1, as you can see, is set up. I am running Mbari. Latest version of Mbari is a 2615, and I'm running a cluster, HDP cluster 2640. Mbari is showing us that this node is a CentOS 6 node. That's number 1. Number 2 is a CentOS 6 node. I haven't switched it over yet. Again, running the same software as HDP, right? So what we're going to do, we could shut down the services on this, but I just want to show how this can be done pretty drastically. What we're going to do here is that we're going to actually bring down the service in this case. We're just going to shut it down, right? So I'm going to go back to my command line over here. And I have a couple scripts lined up for doing this, and I'm going to basically do a down master 2. Okay. When I do this, it's going to basically run a Docker command against my bare metal that's hosting these 6 services and shut down and delete that master service. Once this is done, it may take a second or 2 to show up an Mbari, but what you'll see here is that the service that I had connected to is no longer available. That connection is gone, right? So if I go back to Mbari, go back to hosts, and let's see, it's going to take a minute to catch up. I can go back to quick links and go to the standby name node, and you can see the name node is gone. But the service is still running. I've got an active node It's not showing. Let me see if I can get an update here. No, still hasn't registered as failed yet. It's the agent. And there. We'll wait for this to fail. Node here is showing it's not available anymore. Showing a question mark, meaning there is no indication of this node being online. Okay, it's because we've basically deleted this host from the system. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my script that I was showing you earlier, and I have a script that will basically bring up the new master with a CentOS 7 indication. And let me edit this. Master backup. This time I'm going to bring it back up with a CentOS 7 footprint, a brand new install. This will come up, and this process will basically install Embari agent of the correct version on that and the base OS of what I need, CentOS 7 in this case. It will not do anything else than that, just basically Embari agent, period. It will reattach to the data directories that I showed you in this diagram. So in this case, this one will be the active one using these data directories where the persisted store of what we had for the previous master existed. When that comes up, we can see showing just a PS of all of my Docker containers. I'm going to go over to Embari. And I'm going to see if this host comes up back online. As you can see, the host is back online. Now, at this point, if I were to log into the host, so let me find the connections for this host. Basically, 32803. All right, so if I go here, CD user, you can see that there is CD HDP, CD HDP. Right, there is nothing in the HDP directory. If I do an ID on HDFS or any of the canned users that you would expect in this system after HDP is installed, you would see it here. If I look at the password file, you can see basically nothing but the base OS in place. If you look here, Embari agent status, Embari agent is running and is talking to the Embari server. That's the only component that's running here. Now at this point, I need to reestablish the services. And let me go to the data directories where I'm actually storing the persisted version. You go to CD to HDFS. And you can see that the name node information is here. One of the things that we'll need to fix shortly is basically the permissions on these files has basically disappeared. The attached volume understood a UID of the previous HDFS user. That user does not exist anymore on this particular OS. So before we can correct those versions, we can go back to the agent in Embari for that host and we recover the host. What this is going to do is this will go onto this host and basically install all of the components that we're looking for. So if I go back onto the host and go var log yum log, you can see all of the installations that are happening from HDP. I'll check on the progress of our agent. We're about 45% of the way through with the package installs. Looks like our component installation is finished. As you can see, Ambari is recording that's finished. Okay, the next step is there'd be a tendency to want to start the services. We have to do a couple things before we can do that, right? So let's go back over to the host where we just had the components installed. Let's go ahead and see that our file permissions or file ownership for the services that we want to reinstall are not correct. So at this point though, after the install, the users are available. So we can basically do a chown on these directories to put the right ownership on them. So we've got HDFS for the name node directory, and I can do the same thing for the journal node directory. And then I want to go back and fix yarn. So chown r yarn dupe yarn star. And the timeline server is correct. And then last but not least is Zookeeper. Zookeeper is correct. Now after those are fixed, now we can go back to the services and start them. Host actions, start all components. And we'll watch all the services come back up. The journal node will start, metric server. When we get to the name node, we'll show that the name node comes up in a standby mode. Should come up pretty quickly. Close our old references to name node, go to the dashboard, HDFS, quick links, standby name node UI, and there we go. Agent 2 is running in standby mode. It is in safe mode. It's basically getting the block reports from the data nodes at this point, and we're good to go. Now let's go back to the host. And one thing I want to point out with this host is that now it is reporting as a CentOS 7 host. Different IP, same host name. The IP doesn't seem to make a difference for us. The agent will report the new IP and it will fit right into Ambari. The host name must be the same in order for this technique to work.